The flickering light from millions of distant stars pierced through the reinforced glass viewport of the starship the Voyager, casting ethereal streaks of light across the cold metal corridor. The Zenith space station, a colossal structure suspended in the cosmic void, now appeared before Ambassador Elena Petrova like a majestic iceberg, embodying both grandeur and a lurking threat. Elena clutched the electronic datapad in her hand, feeling the weight of thousands of years of human history resting on her shoulders. This journey was not merely a diplomatic mission, it was a battle. A fight for respect and equal standing in a galaxy where humanity remained an outsider. Underestimated, the galactic hegemony, as they called themselves, had dominated the stars for millennia. They proclaimed themselves protectors, the pinnacle of civilization, yet in Elena's eyes, they were nothing but arrogant beings, full of prejudice. Looks, splendid, Ambassador. Lieutenant Kalen Vance's low, husky voice cut through the silence from behind. Kalen stood there, her figure lean and strong in her charcoal gray combat uniform, her pulse rifle securely strapped to her back. Her gaze swept across the view outside, devoid of fear or wonder, only the constant vigilance of a warrior. Elena turned, offering a slight smile. Splendid, and also full of traps. Kalen, they've spent 3,000 years perfecting the art of looking down on other species. Zenith is a monument to that arrogance. Kalen nodded, her dark hair, tied neatly at the nape of her neck, swayed slightly. We're prepared for that, Ambassador. She was right. The human delegation had undergone months of intensive training, from complex diplomatic protocols to potential confrontation scenarios. Each member was among Earth's elite, not just in intellect but in steel-hardened spirit. They knew they would face contempt, but they also carried a fierce pride in humanity, a species that had overcome countless hardships, risen from the ashes of internal conflicts to reach for the stars. Inside the Zenith station, the atmosphere was heavy and oppressive. Supreme Governor Valerius of the Galactic Hegemony stood in the center of the grand reception hall, his platinum armor gleaming under the dazzling crystal lights. He was a tall, imposing being with 4 powerful limbs and multifaceted eyes that reflected the light with a cold gleam. Beside him stood a squad of hegemony guards, hulking warriors with activated energy weapons, ready for any eventuality. Valerius curled his lip, a gesture difficult for humans to fully comprehend. He had reviewed humanity's records, a species too childish in the hegemony's eyes. The intercepted entertainment programs they had collected, films about love, courage, sacrifice, filled Valerius with disgust. How could a species develop such advanced technology yet still be governed by such naive emotions? He was particularly annoyed that women on Earth were allowed to participate in activities beyond procreation and household management. It was a societal chaos Valerius could not tolerate. They're about to arrive, a hegemony officer whispered, a hint of skepticism in his voice. Do they know their place, Governor? Valerius sneered. They will. We'll make sure of it. This isn't a negotiation, it's a lesson. As the Voyager's airlock slowly opened, the human delegation emerged. Elena Petrova led the way, her demeanor elegant but her gaze resolute. Behind her followed Kalen Vance and 2 other members of the security detail, radiating an unwavering resolve, devoid of any fear or hesitation. Valerius's expression shifted slightly as he noticed the absence of the dread he had expected. Instead, there was a strange, almost challenging confidence. Elena stepped forward, stopping a few paces from Valerius. Greetings, Governor Valerius, she said, her voice clear and calm. We come from Earth, bearing goodwill and a desire to establish an equal relationship with the galactic hegemony. Valerius sniffed disdainfully. Equality? You are too young. Humans, the hegemony's role is to guide and protect nascent civilizations, just as we protect fragile younglings from the perils of the universe. He emphasized the word, younglings, with utter contempt. Elena remained unperturbed. Governor, our species has overcome countless dangers on our own. We do not seek protection, but partnership. We have learned that true strength lies not in imposed authority, but in unity and mutual understanding. Elena's words stung Valerius's pride. He was too accustomed to other civilizations bowing before the hegemony's might. This resistance, from a species he considered naive, was an unacceptable insult. The unity you speak of is perhaps merely a pipe dream of a species still too backward. Valerius snarled, his voice tinged with annoyance. To make you understand your place, I shall provide you with a practical demonstration of the natural order. His gaze fixed on Kalen Vance. Lieutenant Vance, isn't it? I command you to kneel. Here and now, to show reverence for the galactic hierarchy. It is a necessity for your continued existence. Kalen stood perfectly still, her gaze unwavering. A glint appeared in her eyes, as if something deep within her was shifting. The other human guards, though unbidden, tightened their grip on their weapons, bracing for the worst. Elena looked directly at Valerius, her voice cold and warning. Governor Valerius, I advise you to reconsider. Lieutenant Kalen Vance is not someone you can easily command. She is a warrior. She has survived over 10 military campaigns, from space battles to brutal ground engagements on distant planets. She holds 20 individual combat commendations, and has never failed in any assigned mission. Valerius burst into laughter, the sound echoing through the grand hall. You threaten me with a woman? Such a small woman? Hilarious. Let me show you what true power is. He gestured to one of his guards. Neutralize her, but do not inflict lethal harm. I want her alive to witness your species bowing down. The hegemony guard charged at Kalen, his energy weapon emitting a terrifying whine. But in less than 5 seconds, the unthinkable happened. Kalen Vance did not retreat. She moved like a phantom, so fast that the naked eye could barely follow. Before the hegemony guard could react, she was already in front of him. A precise strike to a weak point on his armor, followed by a series of complex, lightning-fast maneuvers, the clatter of metal, and then the grunt of the guard as he collapsed. His armor completely neutralized, his weapon clattering to the floor. Valerius's eyes widened. He had never witnessed such a combat technique. The guard's immense size and powerful weapon were useless against an opponent trained to neutralize larger, stronger foes with absolute precision and speed. Kalen stood upright again, her eyes still reflecting the coldness of a warrior. The entire hall fell into silence. For the first time in history, the galactic hegemony, self-proclaimed masters of the galaxy, had been publicly humiliated by a member of the naive human species. And astonishingly, it was a woman. Valerius stared at Kalen, the arrogance in his eyes slowly giving way to astonishment, and a hint of fear. The order he believed in had been shaken to its core. Silence blanketed the grand hall after Kalen's lightning-fast strike. It wasn't an ordinary silence, but a void thick with tension, echoed by the gasping breaths of the hegemony guard writhing on the floor and the frantic pounding in Valerius's chest. Supreme Governor Valerius's horror wasn't born of fear for himself, but from a profound shock to his core beliefs. The hegemony had never been challenged so directly and effectively by a lesser species. Valerius's multifaceted eyes darted from the fallen guard to Kalen Vance, then to Ambassador Elena Petrova. Elena's serene face remained calm, but her gaze held an unyielding resolve, as if she had anticipated this outcome. This only further bruised Valerius's already wounded pride. What is this? Valerius stammered, a rare tremor in his voice. What have you done? He pointed a finger at Kalen, forgetting both protocol and his usual regal bearing. Kalen Vance stood perfectly straight, not a speck of dust on her uniform. I merely did what I was trained to do, Governor, she replied, her voice as calm as still water. In stark contrast to the chaos in the hall, I neutralized the threat. Elena Petrova stepped forward, her gaze meeting Valerius's. As I said, Governor Valerius, humanity is not a fragile species in need of protection. We are a species that has learned to survive in the harshest environments, facing unimaginable threats. Kalen Vance is a testament to our adaptability and strength of will. Valerius felt a jolt run down his spine. He had read reports of humanity's naivety, yet what he had just witnessed was utterly contradictory. This strength didn't come from superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but from something more primal, more profound: resilience, willpower, and combat skills honed to perfection. Take him away, Valerius roared, pointing at the pained guard. The other hegemony guards, though still stunned, quickly obeyed, dragging their neutralized comrade out of the hall. The atmosphere grew thick with tension. Clearly, This confrontation had irrevocably altered the dynamic of the meeting. Valerius took a deep breath, attempting to regain his composure. He was too accustomed to imposing his authority, not being challenged. Now, he had to change his tactics. Very well, he said, his voice still tinged with condescension but less overtly aggressive. If you have demonstrated your strength, then let us be seated. We shall commence negotiations. Elena nodded. Gladly, she gestured for Kaelin and her guards to take their seats. Kaelin sat down naturally, her gaze still sweeping the room, noting every minute detail. Her unsettling calm unnerved Valerius. Negotiations began. Valerius attempted to maintain his dominant position, offering terms that the hegemony considered favors, such as providing rudimentary, defensive technology to humanity, or allowing them access to certain controlled trade routes. But Elena Petrova was not easily swayed. Governor, Elena stated, her voice resolute, we do not seek favors from the hegemony. We are a sovereign civilization, capable of defending ourselves and developing independently. What we desire is an equal treaty, an agreement that respects each other's sovereignty and establishes a mutually beneficial channel for cooperation. Valerius bristled. Equality? You are not yet worthy. You have not endured the great wars of the galaxy, nor borne the responsibility of maintaining cosmic order as we have. We may not have as long a history as the hegemony, but we have endured our own wars. Elena countered. Wars that taught us the value of life, the necessity of peace, and the importance of unity. We have rebuilt our world from the ashes not once, but many times. That is an experience even the great hegemony could learn from. Elena's words were like needles pricking Valerius's pride. He had always believed that only the hegemony could bring order and knowledge to the galaxy. The mere suggestion that humanity could teach them something was an unacceptable affront. While the debate grew heated, Kaelin Vance continued to observe. She noticed how Valerius constantly twisted words, attempting to force Elena into a vulnerable position. She also observed the disdainful glances from other hegemony members in the room, and even subtle signs of anxiety in the eyes of a few younger officers. It seemed not all of them fully agreed with Valerius's hegemonic policies. Kaelin realized that, despite Valerius's attempts to appear strong, his arrogance was his greatest weakness. He could not tolerate losing control, losing his position of superiority. Negotiations dragged on for several hours, but little significant progress was made. Valerius remained rigid in his terms, and Elena adamantly refused to back down. Finally, Valerius, looking tired and frustrated, declared a recess. We shall resume tomorrow, Valerius stated, his voice clipped. I hope by then, you will have reconsidered your place in the galaxy. The human delegation returned to the Voyager. The atmosphere inside the ship remained tense, but a hint of pride permeated it. They had not bowed. In the command room, Elena sat down, rubbing her temples. He won't give up easily, she said, looking at Kaelin. Valerius views this as a battle for authority, not a negotiation. Kaelin nodded. I know, but we've made him think twice. That's a start. Governor Valerius is arrogant and autocratic. Elena continued, but there's something that makes me uneasy. Several times during the meeting, he looked out the viewport, as if something was troubling him. It wasn't us. Kaelin narrowed her eyes. Do you have a feeling about something, Ambassador? Elena shook her head. Just a hunch. But my hunches are rarely wrong. The galactic hegemony might be facing some kind of threat. A threat they're desperately trying to conceal. And perhaps, that's why they're so eager to control us. Kaelin's eyes suddenly glinted. You want me to investigate? Elena looked at her. I want you to remain on maximum alert. And if an opportunity arises, find out what's truly going on. Knowledge is power, Kaelin. And in this environment, we need every advantage we can get. Kaelin nodded, a faint smile gracing her lips. Understood, Ambassador. Night fell on Zenith Station. But for the human delegation, the battle for independence and status had only just begun. And perhaps, beneath the hegemony's splendid and arrogant facade, a dark secret was slowly revealing itself. The roar echoing through Zenith Station was no longer a distant sound. It was the roar of predation, of primordial fury, and it emanated from the ancients. The entire Zenith Station shook more violently, panicked screams echoing from the corridors as hegemony residents scattered. Emergency red lights flashed frantically, casting terrifying, distorted shadows on the walls. Valerius, the supreme governor of the galactic hegemony, no longer retained his usual arrogant demeanor. He cowered, his multifaceted eyes wide with horror. No way. They've breached the outer defense ring. They're too fast, he stammered, his voice trembling. Elena Petrova remained unperturbed. She looked at Valerius with a sharp gaze. Governor, tell us what the ancients are. We can't help if you keep secrets. They are the destroyers. Valerius gasped, finally breaking his pretense. They are ancient creatures from the Dark Belt, sealed away by the hegemony for millennia. They can bend space, matter. They are living nightmares. As he finished speaking, a massive explosion tore through a nearby metal wall. A powerful gust of wind, accompanied by metal debris, sprayed everywhere. From the newly created opening, a colossal, dark creature, with a craggy body covered in sharp spines and long, razor-sharp limbs, slowly entered the grand hall. It was an ancient. Its form resembled a deformed, colossal insect, with glowing red eyes filled with malice and a mouth full of fangs. They radiated a strange energy field, making the air around them heavy and electric. Kaylin Vance reacted instantly. Ambassador, fall back, she roared, pushing Elena behind a sturdy table. She, along with two other human guards, formed a defensive circle, Kaylin's pulse rifle ready to fire. Firepower. Destroy it, Valerius ordered his guards, but his voice was filled with despair. The hegemony guards quickly opened fire, bright energy beams striking the ancient. However, the attacks seemed to only momentarily stall it, the energy bolts striking its hardened carapace and emitting harmless sparks. The ancient let out a terrifying roar, its sound reverberating through the grand hall. It swung a sharp limb, sweeping across the hegemony guards. They were thrown like ragdolls, crashing into walls with sickening bone-cracking sounds. Clearly, the hegemony's conventional weapons could not inflict much damage. Damn it, it's impervious to our fire, Valerius exclaimed, his face pale. Ambassador, Kaylin said over the internal comms, her voice cold but calculating. Standard weapons are ineffective. I need to focus fire on weak points. Perhaps the joints or eyes. Elena nodded. Kaylin, do whatever you deem necessary. Protect the delegation and find a way to neutralize it. Valerius gasped in shock. He had dedicated his life to believing in the hegemony's superiority, to disdaining other species. Now, he had to admit his own helplessness. The hegemony's survival was at stake. The unexpected moment. Suddenly, the entire Zenith station shuddered violently. The lights on the ceiling flickered intermittently, and a deafening alarm blared everywhere. Chaos erupted. What's happening? Valerius roared, jumping to his feet, his face panicked. Warning, a breach in the outermost defensive ring has been detected. An urgent voice echoed over the comm system. An unidentified object is approaching Zenith Station at extremely high speed. The entire meeting room plunged into darkness as the power system cut out. Only the red emergency lights flickered, casting terrifying, ghostly shadows on the walls. Screams and panic erupted from outside. Elena quickly stood up. Kaylin, she called, her voice resolute. Understood, Ambassador, Kaylin replied. She had already drawn her pulse rifle from her back, ready for any situation. The other human guards quickly moved into defensive positions, shielding the ambassador. It can't be, Valerius muttered, his multifaceted eyes wide with horror. They're here, so fast. What's here, Governor? Elena asked, her voice cold. Tell us, perhaps we can help. Valerius turned to look at Elena, his face full of dread. It's the ancients. The reptilian creatures from the Dark Belt. They are unstoppable. The terrifying growl that Kaylin had heard over the comms now echoed throughout Zenith Station. No longer encrypted or distorted. It was the roar of a colossal, ferocious creature, from a dark place the hegemony had tried to conceal. Zenith Station shuddered again, this time, more violently. The sickening sound of tearing metal echoed. It seemed the ancients Valerius mentioned had attacked the station. The terrifying roar that echoed through Zenith Station was no longer a distant sound. It was the howl of predation, of primordial rage. and it emanated from the ancients. The entire Zenith station shuddered more violently. Panicked screams echoing from the corridors as hegemony residents scattered. Red emergency lights flashed frantically, casting terrifying, towering, distorted shadows on the walls. Valerius, the supreme governor of the galactic hegemony, no longer retained his usual arrogant composure. He cowered, his multifaceted eyes wide with horror. No way, they've breached the defense perimeter. They're too fast, he stammered, his voice trembling. Elena Petrova remained unfazed. She looked at Valerius with a sharp, piercing gaze. Governor, tell us what the ancients are. We cannot help if you continue to conceal the truth. They are the destroyers. Valerius gasped, finally breaking his facade. They are ancient beings from the Dark Belt, sealed away by the hegemony for millennia. They can bend space, matter. They are living nightmares. As he finished speaking, a massive explosion tore through a nearby metal wall. A powerful gust of wind, accompanied by metal shrapnel, sprayed everywhere. From the newly created opening, a colossal, shadowy creature, with a craggy body covered in sharp spines and long, razor-sharp limbs, slowly squeezed into the grand hall. It was an ancient. Its form resembled a deformed, colossal insect, with glowing red eyes burning with hatred and a mouth full of fangs. They radiated a strange energy field, making the surrounding air heavy and electrified. Kaylin Vance reacted instantly. Ambassador, fall back, she roared, pushing Elena behind a sturdy table. She, along with 2 other human guards, formed a defensive perimeter. Kaylin's pulse rifle ready to fire. Fire. Destroy it, Valerius ordered his guards, but his voice was filled with despair. The hegemony guards quickly opened fire, bright energy beams striking the ancient. However, the attacks seemed to only momentarily stagger it, the energy bolts deflecting off its hardened carapace with harmless sparks. The ancient let out a terrifying roar, its sound reverberating through the grand hall. It swung a sharp limb, sweeping across the hegemony guards. They were thrown like ragdolls, crashing into walls with sickening bone-cracking sounds. Clearly, the hegemony's conventional weapons could not inflict significant damage. Damn it, it's impervious to our fire, Valerius exclaimed, his face pale. Ambassador, Kaylin said over the internal comms, her voice cold but calculating. Standard weapons are ineffective. I need to focus fire on weak points. Perhaps the joints or eyes. Elena nodded. Kaylin, do whatever you deem necessary. Protect the delegation and find a way to neutralize it. A second ancient, slightly smaller, emerged from another breach. The situation became more perilous than ever. Valerius, Elena roared, her voice echoing amidst the chaos. Listen, we can help, but we need information. Are there any weaknesses? Any way to deal with them? Valerius looked at Elena, his eyes filled with despair. He had spent his entire life believing in the hegemony's superiority, in disdaining other species. Now, he had to admit his own helplessness. The very survival of the hegemony was at stake. They're very sensitive to antimatter energy, Valerius blurted out, as if it were a terrifying secret just revealed. But we don't have enough large-scale antimatter weapons here. And they're too fast, too hard to hit. Kaylin had heard. Antimatter energy. That was crucial information. The Voyager had a small reserve of antimatter warheads. But they were designed for space combat, not in a confined space like this. Ambassador, Kaylin called out, allow me to use weapons from our ship. We have antimatter warheads. No, Valerius roared. That would destroy a large part of Zenith Station. And the risk of it hitting the main power source would cause the entire station to explode. We have no other choice. Elena countered, her voice cold but resolute. Valerius, trust us. Kaylin Vance is an expert marksman. She won't damage your station. Kaylin didn't wait. She saw an opportunity. One of the ancients was approaching her. With incredible speed, she weaved past a panicked hegemony guard, leapt onto a piece of metal debris, and launched herself towards the monster. She aimed her pulse rifle, not to fire, but to pinpoint. She was calculating a perfect trajectory. Suddenly, Kaylin charged straight at the ancient. Utterly fearless, the hegemony guards and even Valerius were aghast. She's mad. Kaylin wasn't mad. She was executing a risky, but calculated, move. When close to the Ancient, she activated a small device on her wrist. A small energy field was generated, momentarily immobilizing the Ancient, just enough for Kaylin to clamber onto its back. Kaylin moved like a predatory cat. She leapt onto the Ancient's back, clinging tightly to its craggy carapace. The Ancient roared wildly, trying to dislodge her, but Kaylin held fast, her eyes fixed on a single point. It was a small crevice at the joint between the Ancient's head and body, where its shell was thinner. Fire at Zenith Station's main power source. Kaylin yelled over the comms. I'll create an opening. Valerius was stunned. Her request was insane, but he saw the determination in Alina's eyes. And Kaylin's extraordinary courage. He had no other choice. Attack Auxiliary Power System Number 3. Valerius roared, ordering his remaining guards. At the same time, Kaylin drew an energy dagger from her belt. With the strength of a warrior who had endured thousands of battles, she plunged the dagger deep into the weak point she had targeted. A piercing shriek echoed as the compressed antimatter energy within the dagger made contact with that weak point. The Ancient groaned in agony, its carapace beginning to crack. Now, Kaylin yelled. From the Voyager, a weak but highly focused antimatter energy beam fired, passing through a small hole in the wall created by the Ancient, and aimed directly at Auxiliary Power System Number 3 as ordered by Valerius. It was a daring and incredibly precise strike. Zenith Station's energy fluctuated wildly. In that instant, the Ancient seemed affected, it staggered, and its carapace cracked even further. Kaylin exploited that moment. She pulled out a small grenade containing antimatter energy, activated it, and shoved it into the crack. Take cover, Kaylin yelled, leaping off the Ancient's back and quickly finding shelter. A small but deafening explosion erupted. The antimatter energy propagated within the Ancient's body, causing a chain reaction. The colossal creature let out a final, agonizing roar. Then its body began to disintegrate into particles of blue energy. It didn't die, but vanished as if it had never existed. The Grand Hall fell silent again. But this time it was a heavy silence. The first Ancient had been destroyed, but the second Ancient was still there, and it was entering the hall. Valerius stared at the spot where the Ancient had vanished, his face devoid of any arrogance, only shock and a hint of awe. He had just witnessed a small woman accomplish what the entire hegemony forces could not. The second Ancient, a creature similar in size to the first but with sharper limbs and a darker carapace, snarled as it entered the Grand Hall. Its eyes glowed red, emitting a dark energy that seemed to congeal the air. Fear once again permeated the remaining hegemony members. But this time, a faint glimmer of hope emerged. Hope in humanity. Valerius looked at the Ancient, then turned to Elena and Kaylin, his face now devoid of arrogance, replaced by a mixture of shock and reluctant respect. He had witnessed the impossible with his own eyes. It's coming, a hegemony guard stammered. Valerius, Elena said, her voice resolute, we cannot fight separately. Our species has capabilities, but we need the hegemony's cooperation. We need more information about these creatures and any other weaknesses beyond antimatter energy. Valerius took a deep breath, his pride overridden by survival instinct. They are very difficult to hit. They have the ability to bend local space to evade attacks. But there's another weakness, high-intensity light. They are sensitive to blinding light, especially strong ultraviolet frequencies. Kaylin Vance immediately processed the information. High-intensity light. She recalled the jamming devices and emergency floodlights on the Voyager. Ambassador, I need suppressive fire to approach. Our light jamming devices might slow it down. Valerius, order your soldiers to support Kaylin. Elena said, her voice authoritative. This is our only chance. Valerius hesitated for only a moment. He looked into Elena's resolute eyes, then at Kaylin, who was ready to plunge into danger. Listen, all remaining units, focus fire on that creature. The goal is to hold it back. Create an opportunity for the humans. Use any strong light sources you have. Valerius commanded, his voice echoing through the Grand Hall. The remaining hegemony guards, though still afraid, had regained some fighting spirit. They opened fire, bright energy beams striking the Ancient, attempting to draw its attention. Light from the hegemony's emergency floodlights blasted at full power, shining directly onto the creature. The ancient roared in agony as the light hit it. It staggered, seemingly disoriented and slowing slightly. That was exactly the opportunity Kalen needed. Breach, Kalen commanded. Theron poured full power into the thrusters. The ghost surged forward, tearing through the distracted ancient formation. A few other ancients still tried to pursue, bending space to close the distance. Behind us, Jax roared, preparing his heavy weapon. Kalen turned to the weapon bay. Jax, Lyra, fire antimatter warheads at the pursuers. Focus on joints and light-sensitive weak points. Jax, now completely trusting in Kalen's abilities, opened fire. The antimatter rounds flew, striking the pursuing ancients. Small explosions erupted, and the creatures began to disintegrate into blue energy dust, creating a temporary escape route. Amidst the chaos, Valerius suddenly noticed a door leading to an emergency armory. He remembered a small cache of lower-grade antimatter weapons, typically used to disable large equipment. They weren't powerful enough to destroy a full-fledged ancient, but they could create a significant impact if aimed correctly. Kalen Vance, Valerius roared. In the emergency armory in the west sector, there are handheld antimatter devices, but they need to be activated at close range. Kalen nodded, understanding. She was creating enough pressure with light, but to destroy it, she needed something more powerful. She charged towards the armory, dodging the Ancients' attacks, while the hegemony guards continued to fire to hold it back. The chase was dramatic. Kalen moved like lightning, sometimes just inches from the Ancients' sharp limbs. She relied not only on speed but also on a deep understanding of alien physiology, knowledge she had accumulated through countless missions. Finally, Kalen reached the armory. She quickly bypassed the electronic lock with her specialized device. Inside, she found a series of smaller antimatter devices, designed to be thrown by hand. They didn't cause massive explosions but were capable of creating a micronuclear detonation upon contact with the target. I have them, Kalen reported over the comms. The ancient roared, seemingly sensing the new threat. It swung a limb towards Kalen, destroying a section of the wall. Kalen didn't hesitate. She threw 3 antimatter devices at the ancient. The small devices flew through the air, accurately aiming for the large joints on its legs, points she had identified as structural weaknesses. They latched onto the ancient's carapace with magnetic force. A terrifying shriek erupted as the devices activated. The antimatter energy began to react, tearing through the joints. The ancient roared in agony, collapsing to one side, one of its limbs completely torn off. Valerius seized the opportunity. All fire on the injured joints. Quickly, the hegemony guards focused their fire on the ancient's injured joints. At the same time, Kalen charged forward, throwing more antimatter devices at other weak points on its body. Small explosions, bright blue flashes of light, erupted continuously, and the ancient grew progressively weaker. Finally, with a desperate, guttural roar, it completely disintegrated into energy dust. Just like the first one, silence descended upon the grand hall. This time, it was a silence of relief and exhaustion. Hegemony members and humans alike let out sighs of relief. The air still carried the scent of ozone and burning. Valerius stood there, staring at the spot where the ancient had vanished. His face was devoid of arrogance, only shock and a hint of reverence. He looked at Elena Petrova, then at Kalen Vance, who was calmly inspecting her pulse rifle. Ambassador Petrova, Valerius said, his voice husky, devoid of any arrogance. I was wrong. The hegemony's pride blinded us. You humans, you are not weak. You are warriors, survivors, and you have saved Zenith Station. Elena nodded. Governor, it's never too late to acknowledge mistakes. Now, we can sit down and truly negotiate an equal treaty. A genuine partnership. Valerius did not object. He had lost his faith in the hegemony's sole supremacy. The ancients had taught him a harsh lesson about the importance of humility and cooperation. We shall do so, he said, but first, we need to talk about what's truly happening in the Cygnus Belt. Those ancients, they are not the only ones. Kalen Vance and the human guards returned to a relaxed stance, but their eyes remained vigilant. The battle for respect had been won, but the larger war, the war against the threat from the Dark Belt, had only just begun. And this time, Perhaps the galactic hegemony and humanity would have to fight side by side. Following the ancient attack, the atmosphere on Zenith Station had completely transformed. The galactic hegemony's pride was severely wounded, replaced by a palpable anxiety. The disdainful gazes of before now shifted to caution, and at times, unspoken admiration for humanity. Valerius, the supreme governor of the galactic hegemony, his armor partially damaged and his face weary, ordered his soldiers to clear the Grand Hall. He turned to Elena Petrova and Kalen Vance, now devoid of his condescending air. "Ambassador Petrova, Lieutenant Vance," Valerius said, his voice deeper and more sincere, "I owe you an apology. And an explanation. Follow me to the hegemony's top-secret intelligence room. It is time you learned the truth about the Cygnus Belt." Elena and Kalen followed Valerius through the damaged corridors. Witnessing the chaos the attack had wrought, hegemony personnel were frantically evacuating the wounded, repairing damaged sections. There was no doubt that Zenith Station had been on the brink of disaster. The top-secret intelligence room was a circular chamber, with a colossal holographic screen at its center displaying a galactic map. When Valerius activated it, a section of the galactic map was magnified, the Cygnus Belt region. It was a vast area, shrouded in dense cosmic dust clouds, gravitational anomalies, and other strange spatial phenomena. "This is the Cygnus Belt," Valerius began, his voice heavy. "Thousands of years ago, the hegemony discovered the creatures you call ancients living hidden within this region. They are primal beings, capable of bending space, matter, and seemingly immune to most conventional weapons. We call them the Crisis Eaters." Kalen frowned. "Crisis Eaters?" "Indeed." Valerius nodded. "They are drawn to instability, to major conflicts. They seem to feed on energy from chaos and despair. When civilizations destroy themselves through war, or when a star system collapses, they awaken and spread. The hegemony has spent millennia maintaining order in the galaxy, not just for our beliefs, but to prevent the awakening of these crisis eaters." Elena looked at the map, deep in thought. "So, the hegemony's constant attempts to control every civilization, every conflict, wasn't just due to arrogance, but also to this fear?" Valerius bowed his head. "Precisely. We believed that by imposing absolute order, we could keep them in slumber. We built blockade stations around the Cygnus Belt, using special energy fields to contain them. But recently, something changed." He pointed to an area on the map, where energy signals were flashing red, indicating an alarm. "About a few months ago, we detected these ancients becoming more active. Our containment fields were constantly under attack, and they grew stronger. We had to deploy our largest fleet to reinforce the defensive lines." "What happened to awaken them?" Kalen asked, her voice sharp. "A major event?" Valerius hesitated. "We're not certain. Perhaps a cosmic event that released a large amount of energy. Or perhaps minor conflicts on the outer fringes of the galaxy created enough chaotic energy to awaken them." Elena suddenly realized something. "And the arrival of humanity, a newly emerging civilization, beyond your control, made you fear that we would cause instability and fully awaken the ancients." Valerius sighed. "That was one of the reasons. We were too accustomed to imposing order. The idea of a new, powerful, yet uncontrollable species was too great a risk to the stability we tried to maintain. We acted wrongly, but now, the Crisis Eaters have reached our doorstep." He pointed to a spot on the map. "Currently, our largest fleet is engaging a large number of ancients here. They are attempting to break through our final defensive line. If they succeed, they will overrun the galaxy and the hegemony. We are not strong enough to stop a large-scale invasion alone." Valerius turned to Elena, his multifaceted eyes now filled with desperation. "Ambassador Petrova, Lieutenant Vance, I have witnessed your strength and resilience. Your species is not a threat, but a potential ally. I implore your help. We need humanity's strength, and especially Lieutenant Vance's extraordinary combat abilities, to deal with this threat." Elena and Kalen exchanged glances. This was a monumental turning point in history. The galactic hegemony, the arrogant overlords, were now pleading for humanity's help. "If we cooperate," Elena stated, "it must be an equal cooperation. No subjugation treaties, no control. We will be allies." sharing resources, information, and responsibility. Valerius did not hesitate. Agreed. I accept all your terms. We shall immediately draft a new alliance treaty. An equal treaty. Good, Elena said. Then, Governor Valerius, what is your plan? How do we deal with these crisis eaters? Valerius turned back to the map. We need to destroy the source of the outbreak. There is a central point in the Cygnus belt where chaotic energy is most concentrated. And also where the ancients are most numerous. We believe it is their nest. We have tried to penetrate it many times. But we have always been repelled. So we attack this nest. Kaelin asked, a glint in her eyes. The excitement of a warrior facing a new challenge. Indeed, Valerius replied, but we need a vanguard team. A team capable of breaking through their dense blockade, penetrating deep into the dark belt, and finding a way to neutralize or destroy their main power source. A nearly suicidal mission. Elena looked at Kaelin, and Kaelin nodded. Both knew this mission would be extremely dangerous. But this wasn't just about saving the galactic hegemony. This was about saving the entire galaxy, including Earth. Our species is ready to participate, Elena stated. Lieutenant Vance and her team will lead the vanguard. But we need maximum support from the hegemony, detailed information on the enemy, accurate maps, and any technology that might be useful. Valerius nodded, a glimmer of hope in his multifaceted eyes. You shall have everything we possess. I will assign the hegemony's best scientists and engineers to work with you. We will formulate a plan. And we will fight together. On the holographic map, the red dots representing the ancients moved relentlessly, drawing closer to the galactic core. The real war had only just begun, and the fate of the galaxy now rested in the hands of an unlikely alliance between arrogant overlords and a naive, yet resilient human species. The shift in the galactic hegemony's attitude was astonishingly swift. Zenith Station, once a symbol of their sole dominion, now became an emergency cooperation center. The hegemony's engineers and scientists, initially hesitant, quickly cast aside their pride and got to work after witnessing humanity's capabilities. Especially Kaelin Vance's. The top-secret intelligence room was now bustling with activity. Ambassador Elena Petrova and Governor Valerius chaired meetings, outlining the plan to attack the ancient nest. Kaelin Vance, with her extensive combat experience, became one of the primary tactical advisors. The plan was codenamed Dark Storm. The primary objective was to insert a small, elite team deep into the Cygnus belt, bypass the ancients' dense defenses, and destroy their main power source. The hegemony had identified a desolate planet at the heart of the belt, which they believed to be the ancients' nest, a central entity, possibly the command center or energy source for the entire species. The biggest challenge is breaking through their layered blockade, Valerius explained, pointing to a complex diagram on the holographic screen. The ancients in the outer reaches of Cygnus act as a living defense system. They can bend local space to deflect attacks and redirect starships. Our fleets have failed multiple times. We need superior stealth capabilities, Elena said, and a team capable of independent operations in an extreme environment. We have the Ghost, a hegemony engineer proposed, an advanced reconnaissance vessel, equipped with our latest generation stealth system. But it has never been tested in actual combat conditions against the ancients. Then we will test it, Kaelin Vance declared. This mission will require absolute precision and rapid adaptation. We cannot bring a large fleet. Valerius nodded. Lieutenant Vance will lead the vanguard. We will provide you with all the data we have on the ancients, including any weaknesses we have ever discovered, no matter how minor. We will also modify your weapons to maximize their effectiveness against them. The vanguard team was formed. It was a unique combination of the best of both civilizations. Lieutenant Kaelin Vance, human, tactical commander, infiltration and close quarters combat specialist, with an exceptional ability to identify weak points and adapt to any situation. Sergeant Jax, hegemony, a seasoned warrior, specialized in heavy weaponry and survival skills in harsh environments. Jax was initially a traditional hegemony soldier but gradually changed after witnessing Kaelin. Dr. Lyra, human, AI and biotech expert, responsible for electronic systems, data analysis, and identifying the ancients' biological weak points. She carried an advanced biological scanner that could see through the ancient's carapace. Captain Theron, Hegemony, primary pilot of the Ghost. A talented pilot with superb maneuvering skills. The only one capable of navigating the Ghost through the Cygnus Belt's spatial anomalies. Technical support team, Hegemony and Human, a small group of engineers and tech specialists. Responsible for maintaining and upgrading the Ghost's equipment throughout the mission. In the following days, the Vanguard team underwent intensive training. Kalen instructed Jax and other Hegemony members on close-quarters combat techniques against the Ancients. Focusing on speed, precision, and exploiting weaknesses, Jax, though initially a bit uncomfortable learning from a small woman, quickly recognized Kalen's superior talent. "The way you move, I've never seen anything like it," Jax admitted after a grueling training session, sweat dripping from his armor. Kalen just smiled. "It's experience, Sergeant, and adaptability. The enemy doesn't stand still. So why should we?" Dr. Lyra and Captain Theron also worked tirelessly. Lyra fine-tuned the Ghost's sensors to detect the subtle energy fluctuations of the Ancients, while Theron plotted potential flight paths, trying to find gaps in their defensive layers. "We need a contingency plan for every scenario," Theron said in a meeting. "This belt, it's like a living maze. And those crisis eaters, they're even more terrifying than the Hegemony ever described." Despite the successful cooperation, anxieties still lingered. Elena Petrova often conversed with Valerius. "Governor," Elena said, "if the Ancients' primary energy source is chaotic energy, as you say, then does their awakening signal a larger conflict approaching?" Valerius mused. "That is a question we have asked ourselves for centuries. Are they a consequence, or a cause? The Hegemony has tried to prevent conflict. But perhaps we merely delayed the inevitable. Perhaps this galaxy is on the verge of an all-out war, and the Ancients' awakening is a sign. So if we destroy that nest, will they completely disappear?" Elena asked. "No one knows for sure," Valerius admitted. "We only hope that destroying the source will weaken them, or at least put them back into deep hibernation." One evening, Kalen sat alone in the Ghost's weapon bay, checking each rifle, each grenade. She felt the heavy weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The fate of billions of lives depended on this mission. "Can't sleep, Lieutenant?" Jax's deep voice echoed. He stood at the doorway, holding a cup of green liquid, the Hegemony's favorite beverage. "I don't need much sleep," Kalen replied. "And tonight, I have too much on my mind." Jax stepped in, sitting beside her. "We once thought the Hegemony was invincible, that we could control everything. But you've changed the way we see this universe. This universe isn't just one way to exist, Sergeant," Kalen said. "Strength doesn't just come from imposition, but from resilience and adaptability. We learned that through many catastrophes. And perhaps, the Hegemony will learn that too." Jax looked at her, his eyes holding genuine respect. "I hope we get through this. I used to look down on humanity. But now I know, I was wrong. You are a great warrior, Lieutenant Vance." Kalen nodded, a faint smile gracing her lips. "We will, Sergeant. We have to." The moment of departure was drawing near. The Ghost awaited in the launch bay, ready to carry the Vanguard deep into the dark belt. A battle not just for survival, but for a shift in perception awaited them. The Ghost, a phantom of metal and the Hegemony's most advanced stealth technology, silently departed from Zenith Station. Inside, tension hung heavy in the air. Captain Theron, with skilled hands, piloted the Ghost through the outermost defensive ring of the Hegemony, a complex network of sensor stations and automated fortresses positioned to monitor any movement from the Cygnus Belt. Kalen Vance stood beside Theron on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the sensor display. Dr. Lyra was hunched over her analysis station, monitoring unusual energy fluctuations, while Jax and the technical support team rechecked equipment and antimatter weapons. "We are entering the gray zone, Lieutenant," Theron announced, his voice strained but focused. "The Hegemony's sensor systems will soon become ineffective. From here on, we will rely entirely on the Ghost systems and our own senses." The gray zone was the area bordering the Cygnus Belt, where spatial anomalies began to become pronounced. The Ghost began to shudder slightly as it passed through unstable gravitational currents. Outside the viewport, Cosmic dust clouds swirled into bizarre shapes, occasionally flashing with unnatural blue-purple light. That was residual energy from the ancients, Theron explained. Ambassador Petrova wishes to establish contact, Lyra reported. Elena Petrova appeared on the communication screen. How are things? Kalen, are you safe? All clear, Ambassador, Kalen replied. We're pushing deeper into the gray zone. Everything is according to plan. Be extremely careful, Elena cautioned. Valerius just reported that the number of ancients at their second defensive line has surged. It seems they are concentrating their forces on a weakness they've found. We will be careful, Kalen reassured. I'll contact you again when we have more information. The living labyrinth. As the ghost penetrated deeper into the Cygnus belt, the surrounding environment became more chaotic than ever. Distorted signals flooded the sensor displays. Occasionally, large, amorphous objects drifted through space, resembling warped celestial bodies. But Lyra warned that these could be ancients in hibernation. Warning, Lyra suddenly exclaimed, detecting a group of ancients. They are active, numbers, very large, on the ghost's sensor display. Dense red dots appeared, surrounding the ship from all sides. Theron immediately activated the advanced stealth system, making the ghost almost invisible to the ancient's sensors. However, the ancient's ability to bend space was another threat. They're sensing our presence through gravitational disturbances, Theron said, sweat beading on his forehead as he struggled to pilot the ship to evade the suddenly shifting gravity fields. Our stealth system isn't perfect against their senses. Suddenly, a colossal ancient, resembling a giant alien squid with spiny tentacles, appeared directly in front of the ghost. It swung a tentacle towards the ship. Theron reacted lightning fast, banking the ghost to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack. We can't keep hiding forever, Kalen said. We have to break through. I can generate a high-intensity ultraviolet light stream from the forward spotlights, Lyra suggested. It might temporarily blind them. Do it, Kalen ordered. A dazzling blue-purple light beam shot out from the ghost's bow, shining directly onto the approaching ancient. The monster roared in agony, its tentacles recoiling. That was the opportunity. Theron, break through, Kalen commanded. Theron poured all power into the thrusters, and the ghost surged forward, tearing through the distracted ancient formation. A few other ancients still tried to pursue, bending space to close the distance. Behind us, Jax roared, preparing his heavy weapon. Kalen turned to the weapon bay. Jax, Lyra, fire antimatter warheads at the pursuers. Focus on joints and light-sensitive weak points. Jax, now completely trusting in Kalen's abilities, opened fire. The antimatter rounds flew, striking the pursuing ancients. Small explosions erupted, and the creatures began to disintegrate into blue energy dust, creating a temporary escape route. After hours of weaving and intense combat, the ghost finally reached the core of the Cygnus belt. This was not a dead planet as they had thought. It was a colossal living entity, a massive biological mass floating in space, covered in hive-like structures and glowing vascular networks. It was the ancient's central nest. No way, Lyra whispered, her eyes wide with astonishment. It's not a planet, but a living creature, a colossal living creature. On the surface of the central nest, thousands of smaller ancients crawled, moving along glowing vascular pathways. They seemed to be drawing energy from these conduits. That's their energy source, Kalen said. But how do we destroy something so massive? My scanner detects an extremely high concentration of energy at the center of this structure, Lyra reported. It's like a giant heart, pumping energy to the entire nest. That's the chaotic energy source Valerius spoke of. Theron piloted the ghost to land on a small landing pad on the central nest's surface, amidst the strange organic structures. As the airlock opened, the outside air was unusually warm, and carried a strange scent, like damp earth and burning metal. We'll proceed on foot from here, Kalen ordered. Jax, lead the way. Lyra, use your scanner to navigate to the center. Theron, maintain contact with us and prepare for emergency extraction. The Vanguard team stepped out of the ghost, their helmet lights illuminating the path. Both hegemony and human members moved cautiously, weapons ready. They were entering the heart of a colossal monster. A living entity that no one in galactic history had ever dared to confront directly. Faint, menacing roars echoed from deep within the central nest. They were not alone. Thousands of smaller ancients awaited them, hidden in the crevices and biological tunnels of this nest. The vanguard team plunged deeper into the central nest, their footsteps landing on a soft, resilient organic material that pulsed with faint light from glowing veins. The air was humid and heavy, carrying the stench of decay and a strange metallic odor. Faint growls from other ancients echoed from the dark tunnels. Jax led the way, his heavy weapon always at the ready. Kaylin followed closely, her eyes scanning every crevice, every shadow. Lyra, with her advanced scanner, constantly analyzed the surroundings, providing information about the nest's biological structure and the location of other ancients. The primary energy signature is getting stronger, Lieutenant, Lyra reported, her voice slightly strained. We're heading in the right direction. But it also means we're getting closer to the ancient source. Suddenly, from a crevice in the wall, a smaller, more agile ancient burst out. It resembled a spider, with 8 sharp limbs and glowing red eyes. Kaylin reacted in a flash. She didn't fire, but instead used her speed, lunging forward and delivering a precise strike to its delicate joint, neutralizing it instantly. Looks like we're not welcome here, Jax muttered, tightening his grip on his weapon. The deeper they went, the narrower and more bizarre the tunnels became. Occasionally, pulsing organic growths lined the walls, or tentacles extended from the ceiling, attempting to ensnare them. Warning, Lyra exclaimed. There's an energy-contaminated zone ahead. This is a natural defense system of the nest. We can't pass through it. The vanguard team halted. Before them, the tunnel was blocked by a hazy mist, emitting a faint hiss and causing their equipment to flicker. Is there another way? Kaylin asked. Lyra shook her head. This is the only path to the energy core. It seems we'll have to find a way through this mist. Could an electromagnetic pulse thin it? Jax suggested. Not strong enough, Lyra replied. It's a form of biological energy, not electromagnetic. We need something that can neutralize or overwhelm it. Kaylin pondered. She recalled the information Valerius had provided about the ancients, their sensitivity to high-intensity light, and a type of biological energy. Lyra, can you reconfigure your scanner to emit a focused, high-intensity ultraviolet light beam, combined with a high-frequency sonic disruptor? Lyra thought for a moment. Possibly, but it will overload the system and cause uncomfortable noise. It might damage the equipment if used for too long. We just need enough time to get through. Kaylin said. Do it. Lyra quickly reconfigured the device. When she activated it, a dazzling blue-purple light beam shot out, accompanied by a high-pitched, uncomfortable whine. The toxic energy mist ahead seemed affected. It recoiled and significantly weakened. Move, Kaylin ordered. The vanguard team dashed through the thinning mist. As they passed, the mist regenerated, but they were already on the other side. After navigating through several more tunnels and confronting a few smaller ancients, they finally reached the center of the nest. It was a colossal chamber, illuminated by an eerie red glow from a massive entity at its core. This was not a machine, or a simple structure. It was a gigantic biological sphere, pulsing with a steady rhythm, covered in millions of glowing veins and neural fibers. Chaotic energy swirled around it, creating a fluctuating gravitational field and terrifying illusions. Thousands of ancients of all sizes swarmed around it, some seemingly absorbing energy from it, others protecting it. This was the heart of the enemy. This is it, Lyra whispered, her voice a mixture of awe and fear. It's a living creature. This entire nest is a living organism, and this is its energy core. Valerius was right, Kaylin said. This is their origin. If we destroy it, the entire network of ancients will weaken or revert to hibernation. But how do we destroy something so massive? Jax asked, looking at the colossal energy sphere protected by thousands of ancients. We can't carry enough weaponry to destroy something this big. Kaylin frowned. She had meticulously studied the information the hegemony provided. Valerius said they were sensitive to antimatter energy. But this is too big for handheld devices. We need a larger explosion. Lyra suddenly had an idea. Lieutenant, I can use our field generator devices to amplify the antimatter energy from the ghost. We can create an extremely focused energy beam, but it will require us to pinpoint it precisely and create a breach in their defenses. And the ghost will have to get close enough to fire the energy directly into the core. Theron added, his voice filled with concern. That means it will have to withstand a direct assault from all the ancients in this area. That's a risk we have to take, Kaylin said, her eyes resolute. We need to create a pathway. Jax, you and Lyra will be the primary suppressive fire. Use everything we have to hold them back. I'll go ahead and create a breach in their defenses. What will you do? Jax asked. Kaylin turned to Jax, a determined smile gracing her lips. I'll use a bit of noisy infiltration. It's going to be quite loud. Time was running out. The growling from other ancients grew louder, indicating they were converging to protect the central nest. The vanguard team had reached the enemy's heart, and now it was time for them to deliver the decisive blow. Time was running out. The growling from other ancients grew louder, signaling their convergence to protect the central nest. Kaylin Vance looked at the colossal energy sphere pulsing in the center of the chamber, its ominous red light casting shadows on her determined face. Ready, Jax? Lyra? Kaylin asked, her voice echoing through the comms. Ready, Jax replied, tightening his grip on his weapon. Lyra nodded, her fingers hovering over the control panel of her scanner. Theron, keep the ghost in position and prepare to fire the energy on Lyra's signal. Kaylin ordered the hegemony pilot on the ship. Understood, Lieutenant. We'll provide cover, Theron replied, his voice strained. Kaylin Vance pulled out a compact device from her belt. It was a localized gravitational disruptor, designed to create tiny force fields, altering the trajectory of objects. But Kaylin would use it differently. This is my noisy infiltration technique, Kaylin whispered, a determined smile gracing her lips. She charged towards the energy sphere, utterly fearless of the thousands of smaller ancients surrounding it. The smaller ancients lunged at Kaylin, their sharp limbs slashing through the air. But Kaylin moved with incredible speed. She didn't dodge each one individually. Instead, she used the localized gravitational disruptor. She activated it rhythmically, creating tiny force fields that pushed her forward, or deflected the charging ancients. Small explosions erupted continuously as Kaylin collided with and neutralized the ancients in her path. She moved like a whirlwind, carving a chaotic path through the enemy's living defenses. Jax, Lyra, cover me, clear the rear. Jax and Lyra opened fire relentlessly. Jax unleashed volleys of pulse rounds at the larger ancients, slowing them down. Lyra, using her reconfigured scanner, emitted concentrated ultraviolet light beams and high-frequency sonic disturbances, scattering and weakening the other ancients. They moved in tandem behind Kaylin, creating a corridor of death through the ancient horde. Finally, Kaylin reached the surface of the energy sphere. She clung tightly to its sticky, organic matter, the faint growl from within the sphere echoing menacingly. Hundreds of smaller ancients immediately swarmed her, attempting to tear her apart. Kaylin drew her energy dagger and began to stab at the energy sphere. Not to destroy it, but to create an entry point. The sphere's organic shell was tougher than she expected, but she persisted, each thrust of the dagger meticulously calculated, seeking a weakness in its biological structure. Sweat drenched her brow, and she felt the chaotic energy from the sphere attempting to erode her will. I've created a breach, Kaylin yelled over the comms. Her voice clipped as she fought off the attacking ancients. Lyra, Theron, now. Lyra immediately began adjusting the ghost's energy projection system. Target lock established. Antimatter energy loading from ship's core. A few more seconds needed. On the ghost's bridge, Theron was sweating profusely. Dozens of ancients surrounded the ship, their sharp limbs slamming against the hull. The ghost's energy shields were rapidly weakening. We can't hold out much longer, Theron yelled, struggling to keep the ship steady. Jax continued to provide suppressive fire, but the sheer number of ancients was overwhelming. A larger ancient had broken through Jax's defenses and was charging towards Kaylin, its sharp limb ready to impale her. Kaylin, Jax roared a warning. Kaylin felt the imminent danger. She turned, her eyes burning with incredible resilience. She had no time to dodge. With a decisive movement, she activated the localized gravitational disruptor once more. creating a powerful repulsion field that pushed the charging ancient back a bit. At the same time, she mustered her last reserves of strength, plunging the energy dagger deep into the breach she had just created. Fire! Lyra yelled. From the ghost, an extremely focused antimatter energy beam, amplified by Lyra's system, shot out. It pierced through the organic shell of the central nest, going directly into the breach Kaelin had just created. A terrifying shriek, unlike any sound heard before, reverberated throughout the central nest. The colossal energy sphere convulsed violently. Chaotic energy began to leak out, uncontrolled. The glowing veins across the entire central nest flickered wildly, then went dark. The ancients surrounding Kaelin and Jax suddenly froze. They whined faintly. Their bodies began to tremble and disintegrate into blue energy dust, just like the previous two ancients. It worked, Jax roared. They're dying. Kaelin quickly retreated from the weakening energy sphere. Theron, retreat, now. Theron didn't hesitate. He poured all remaining power into the thrusters, and the ghost shot away from the disintegrating central nest. As they flew away, behind them, the colossal energy sphere began to shatter. A massive energy explosion, not of physical destruction, but the complete disintegration of the colossal organism itself, ripped through the core of the Cygnus belt. Dazzling blue light erupted, then faded into darkness. The entire Cygnus belt seemed to fall silent. The red dots on the ghost's sensor display, representing other ancients, faded and disappeared. The chaotic energy had been neutralized, and the Crisis Eaters had returned to a deep hibernation, or had been completely destroyed. On Zenith Station, Valerius and Elena Petrova watched the scene on the large screen. As the last blue light vanished and the ancient signals on the map completely disappeared, Valerius let out a long breath. A massive burden lifted from him. They did it, Valerius whispered, his voice filled with awe and relief. The humans. You saved us. Elena smiled, her eyes brimming with pride. Not just the hegemony, Governor. They saved the entire galaxy. Zenith Station, just hours after the ancient attack, had become a hub of reconstruction and hope. Scars remained on the station's hull, but the spirit of the survivors had changed. Fear had given way to solidarity, and the walls of prejudice had crumbled. Valerius, the supreme governor of the galactic hegemony, stood beside Ambassador Elena Petrova in Zenith Station's command center, watching the return of the ghost. His face no longer held arrogance or weariness, but rather a profound thoughtfulness and deep gratitude. They're back, Valerius whispered, his voice filled with emotion. They did what we, with all our power and knowledge, could not. Humanity, you have truly changed everything. Elena smiled. We merely did what needed to be done, Governor, and it's a testament to the fact that when civilizations cooperate, we can overcome any danger. As the ghost landed in the receiving bay, Valerius and Elena went together to greet the Vanguard team. Kaelin Vance was the first to emerge, her posture still ramrod straight despite a nearly suicidal mission. Jax, Lyra, and Theron followed, all tired but their eyes shining with victory. Valerius stepped forward, without hesitation, placing a limb on Kaelin's shoulder, a rare gesture of respect from the hegemony. Lieutenant Vance, he said, his voice choked with emotion. You performed a miracle. You saved Zenith Station, and perhaps even this entire galaxy. Kaelin nodded. It was a team effort, Governor, and your trust. Jax, who had once disdained Kaelin, now looked at her with undisguised admiration. She is an extraordinary warrior, he told Valerius. No one in the hegemony could have done what she did. In the days that followed, Zenith Station became the site of a historic event. Ambassador Elena Petrova and Governor Valerius jointly drafted the Treaty of Galactic Alliance. This was not a treaty of subjugation or control, but an equal agreement, based on mutual respect and a commitment to cooperate for the common safety and development of the galaxy. The terms of the treaty included sharing of technology and knowledge. The hegemony would share their most advanced technologies, including aerospace engineering and medicine. In return, humanity would share their knowledge of adaptability, unconventional combat techniques, and experience in rebuilding from catastrophe. Establishment of a joint alliance response force, a combined military force would be established, comprising members from both the hegemony and humanity. trained to deal with cosmic threats, especially the ancients. Kalen Vance was nominated for a high-ranking command position within this force. Expansion of trade and diplomatic routes. Safe trade routes would be established between civilizations, and regular diplomatic channels would be maintained to peacefully resolve any disputes. Joint research on the Cygnus Belt. A collaborative scientific research program would be launched to learn more about the ancients, their origins, and how to prevent their permanent awakening. During the treaty signing ceremony, Valerius delivered a humble speech. We, the galactic hegemony, once believed we were the sole protectors of the galaxy. That pride blinded us. Today, we realize that true strength lies not in domination, but in unity. Humanity has taught us a valuable lesson, and we are profoundly grateful. Elena Petrova also delivered a powerful speech. Our human species has overcome many trials. We have learned that even in the deepest darkness, there is always hope when we stand together. This treaty is not just a piece of paper, but a promise of a future where the stars will be shared, not controlled. With the Treaty of Galactic Alliance signed, a new era had begun. The Voyager was no longer just a diplomatic vessel but a symbol of cooperation. Hegemony scientists visited Earth, sharing knowledge and learning from human experience. Conversely, Earth's scientists and engineers also gained access to the hegemony's advanced technology. Kalen Vance, in her new role within the Alliance Response Force, began training soldiers from both civilizations. She not only taught them combat skills but also imparted the philosophy of adaptability, tactical thinking, and the importance of understanding the enemy. Under her command, this force became stronger and more agile than ever, ready to confront any threat that might emerge from the dark corners of the universe. Although the threat from the ancients had been repelled, Valerius still frequently discussed with Elena the possibility of their return. We cannot be complacent, Valerius said. They are crisis eaters. If this galaxy falls into war again, they will return. Elena nodded. And that is why we must ensure there are no more major conflicts. Our mission is not just to defeat the ancients, but to build a peaceful galaxy. The galaxy was slowly changing. New trade routes opened, bringing prosperity to smaller civilizations. Cultural exchanges took place, helping species understand and respect each other more. The galactic hegemony, while still a major power, had learned to shed its pride to become a true leader, not a dictator. And Kalen Vance, from an unknown soldier, had become a living legend, a symbol of humanity's courage and boundless potential. The story of the woman who neutralized the Overlord was told throughout the galaxy, reminding all that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the most unexpected places, and unity is the key to overcoming any darkness.